I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting where we'll review the action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening, April 2nd, right here at City Hall at 6 p.m. Following our agenda meeting, we'll have a special call meeting of the Board of Directors to review applicants for various boards and commissions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Burrow for the review of those action items.
Thank you, Mayor. Your first 9 items are resolutions, and they all pertain to the appointing of members to either commissions or committees that you'll be hearing at your special call after this meeting. So if there's not any questions there, we'll move on to item 10.
Very good.
Hearing none, consider Resolution R-2467, a resolution adding certain water and wastewater assets into the Hot Springs Municipal Utility and Wastewater System Fixed Asset Register, and our city engineer, Gary Carnahan, will present this item.
This is just our normal cleanup of projects that have been built by our private developers in the area, where they have to make water or sewer main extensions to complete the projects that they want to do. And that sometimes it's as small as a $17,000 short extension to get a water or sewer main extended to a few lots that were short. Or in this case, we have a $547,000 addition to a big subdivision over on Lake Hamilton. But altogether, there are 16 projects that total $1,821,000. We're accepting those into the city for maintenance and ask for your approval to do that.
Very good. Any questions of Gary? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next item is consider Resolution R-2468, a resolution approving a lease agreement between the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas and Physicians Air Transport LLC for office space in hangar A14, room number 3 for installation of a flight simulator and for other purposes. And our airport director, Don Rollett, is here to present the item.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This lease is with a company that's already out at the airport, the Physician Air Transport. And they're looking to lease this property or this office. It's a 750 square foot office space where they would be placing a full motion flight simulator in there that would be used for their clients in training and qualifications. In doing so, the calculations for it, it's a 2-year lease with two-year options to extend. The rent on it would be $531.25. Since it's a common use area, they'd also be paying a utility percentage, which is $120 a month. So their total lease would be $651.25 for that area. Additionally, the airport's requesting the authority to approve lease improvements for this operations not to exceed $4,800 for carpet, paint, and so forth to get the room set up for their operations. This would be discounted over a 12-month period off of the rent that would give them during the 12-month period rent of $251.25. After the 12-month period, it would go back to the $651.25. They would have to show receipts and have prior approval prior to those improvements taking place, and then the discount on the reimbursements once that's been identified.
Very good. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is consider Resolution R-2469, a resolution approving the purchase of a 2024 custom-built Pierce Manufacturing Sabre fire engine from Sidens Martin Emergency Group LLC pursuant to the Cooperative Purchasing Program through Sourcewell. This is in the amount of $821,376.99. And our Fire Chief, Ed Davis, is here to discuss the item.
Thank you, Directors. I appreciate you allowing me to come before you tonight. So what the fire department is proposing to do is to purchase a pumper from Pierce Incorporated of Appleton, Wisconsin. This is a 2,000 gallon per minute, two-stage pumper. It's basically designed to operate primarily in the urban areas of downtown Hot Springs, but it'll also be a dependable responder in the urban areas outside and suburban areas, that kind of thing. It'll be assigned to Central Fire Station. It will also replace a pumper that is 24 years old that's in reserve status and allows to move a 12-year-old frontline engine to a lower call volume station. The quote, the drawings of the engine and its specifications, as well as the Sourcewell contract and the offer from Siddons Martin are enclosed in your packet.
Any questions of Chief? Director, Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. You may have said, Chief, but what's the delivery time?
It is 28 months.
28
Yes, sir.
months?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It will actually be subject to 2024 emission standards, but it will have a plate that will say manufactured in 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, we are paying upfront for this vehicle and having a savings. How much was that savings?
It's $60,000 and a little bit of change.
60.
Yeah, so it does allow us to have a little bit of that capital money left over for other purposes, if the board wish to utilize it.
Not that your memory would kick in here, but the one that, the unit that's being replaced, that pumper, what did that cost us 24 years ago?
So that's a great question. So I'm gonna give you a scientific wild guess, right? So if you look back, I know in 1979, a pumper at that point in time was going for $79,000, right? And so by the time that you hit 1989, you were actually looking at a pumper of that same caliber, same style, going for somewhere around $250,000. And so even up to 4 years ago, you were still only paying about $650,000 for a fire apparatus. We will not see $850,000 or $820,000 again on the next pumper. It will be closer to $1 million. You know, as they're reshoring all of the manufacturing in automobiles and that kind of thing, the prices of these things will go up exponentially in the future as well.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Garcia?
I may have missed it. Did you say this was part of our short-term financing?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
And so the interest, I'm paying it all up front. We still save money by the 60,000's a lot more than that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we appreciate negotiating the best deals for the city.
Now, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for helping the fire department and acquire new apparatus. It's just such a really good thing to be replacing the fleet. And, you know, the fire department doesn't want to cost the city any more money than it has to, but we want to get reliable pieces of equipment that will not be maintenance intensive. I can promise you that the Pierce apparatus will be that.
Very good. Thank you.
Next, we have to consider Resolution R2470, a resolution amending Resolution Number 10325 by updating the 2024 Table of Authorized Personnel within the Hot Springs Fire Department and for other purposes. And again, Chief Davis.
So, as I told you before, I'm in the last 3.5 years of my career. And so in the process of planning for my exit, which will be sooner than all of us probably can realize, we need to put together a succession plan. We also need to reorganize the Fire Marshal's office. So Fire Marshal Tom Broughton has assumed many roles, certainly beyond the scope of what a Fire Marshal would normally do. And so it puts a lot of pressure on him trying to do two different jobs. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want the fire department to be healthy in the future and its administrative section to function as seamlessly as possible. And, you know, last year we split the training office up into 2 lieutenants instead of one 5FD position. I'm sorry, 2 3FD positions instead of 1 5FD position. We want to do the same thing in the Fire Marshal's office. What we'd like to do is eliminate a 4FD position, a 5FD position, and establish 2 3FD positions to take those 2 functions over. And then to establish an assistant chief's position that we would move Fire Marshal Broughton into. So the cost associated with this annually will be an increase of $93,486.99. And basically, the reason why we do that is because we were able to reduce 2 high-cost positions, a 4FD and a 5FD, and replace them with 2 3FDs, if that makes sense to you.
Those FDs are actually pay grades within the fire department structure.
Pay grade, not rank.
And that is why I corrected myself. The city attorney has scolded me and slapped my hand many times for referring to it as a lieutenant's position, 3FD. It is not. It is actually 3FD position.
Rank is found in suppression, not in administration.
Director Webb, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for being here. A lot of what you're describing to us here takes us back to the work session. Isn't that correct? Just a few weeks ago that you presented to us, which did surround having at least the scope of what the potential new fire station will look like, Fire Station South, and then also the succession plan. Can you share with us, or will it be included in the packet, which positions will go through the traditional method of applying and being interviewed
Sure.
to be hired?
So the new assistant chief's position is much like my position. It is an at-will employee. So it's different than what we would normally do in the suppression ranks. The suppression ranks are all protected by civil service, and some of the admin ranks are. But the assistant chief's position would not be one of those. He would serve at the discretion of the city manager, just like I do. And so it is a different type of position because you're looking for someone who can actually operate in the political world as well as the fire world. And those kind of skills are kind of hard to come by. I mean, I have really, really great people that make wonderful decisions during emergency operations. What I need is I need to be training someone to be a great administrator. And the person that has the greatest abilities to do that in the fire department is Tom Broughton.
Your 2 fire marshal positions would go through the civil process.
They would, yes, sir.
And not to discredit Mr. Broughton, and especially not to discredit your recommendation for him to take that assistant chief role, but how common is it in other fire departments across the city where the assistant chief, for those that do have an assistant chief, to have an at-will position? Why would the assistant chief not go through the other steps as all other employees do? Would you not be looking for just as much as a qualified person as you would someone who you think would best serve that role?
Yeah, I'll try to field that for you, Director. First of all, you have to ascertain whether or not that particular municipality has a civil service system in place. If they don't have a civil service, then we're not having the conversation. The Civil Service Commission will determine, I understand the board's function here is to create the positions, and if civil service then structures the testing and the interviewing as the chief is going to request, then the 2 individuals who would be up for fire marshal will still go through a testing and an interviewing, but instead of a 60-40 split, it'll be a 70-30, like it was for the training officers, which has already been done. And then for the assistant fire chief, there will be a suspension of competitive testing.
So is what you're explaining here today in current policy?
Yes.
It is?
If I may, isn't it the same process that was used for the assistant
Yes.
police chief?
Thank you.
It-
I bring that up just because upon first glance, it didn't seem as fair to me, because it seems as if there may be others who might have that desire to serve as that role and have just as good of qualifications, who might want to put their name in the hat for this position, and to have it just not be available for those and just to be given to a recommendation.
I
Yeah.
did not mean to imply that the only candidate that was eligible for the position is Tom Broughton. This is not about Tom Broughton, this is about the position.
Right, that's why I'm bringing it up.
The chief is going to open up the applicants to the world.
So this will go in-house. There could be others who seek this position too?
There could be, but I don't want to mislead you. The reason why his name is here is because he is the best candidate. It's simple. I mean, it's kind of one of those deals to where that, you know, from my standpoint. And, you know, if the civil service does choose to go through the process of, you know, testing or whatever they want to do on this process, he'll be in the top 3 and he'll be who I'll pick. So we can do it whatever way you want to do it, but I'm pretty much set that this is where I'm going to go, and I don't want to mislead anybody. I've told people at the fire department that I've had a chance to help Tom Broughton be chief. He was the best man to be chief, and I've said that for the last 10 years. You know, I'm not gonna mislead the board on where I'm at, and I just want you to know exactly how I feel about it.
I do want to say, though, that we are an equal opportunity employer. Anybody can apply for that.
They can.
And go through that process. You know, in the past years, we haven't had this assistant chief's position. As far as I can remember, the fire marshal has always kind of been the de facto fire chief when the fire chief resigns. So it kind of follows that same structure. And really, when we're talking about this position for the board anyway, I'm comfortable with a succession plan for fire chief. What I'm concerned about in the fire department is having a succession plan under the fire marshals. It's going to take all 3 of those years for them to be able to learn the codes that they need to know to be able to go out to these facilities. And every facility has to be gone through once a year and be able to do the type of inspections that fire marshals do. So as we move these employees, whomever they may be, they'll go through the rate and ranking process, and we'll pick 2 of the top 3 candidates, I guess, and they'll become our fire marshals. But those are the ones we're really training for this succession in 3.5 years, because right now we don't have anybody behind our current fire marshal. You know, our assistant fire marshal is retired. So that's where we're hurting within the fire department succession plan, in my opinion.
Pardon? Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, my question was, maybe already answered, but I'm also concerned if Broughton is the only person that was interested in the job. Do you know if there are other people that are interested as well?
I'm sure that there would be some people that would be interested in it. I would say that they're probably unqualified for the job. But yes, ma'am, there's at least one other person that's interested in the job.
Mhm. So when you say unqualified, does that mean that they would have to take a written test and maybe not pass it, or what makes them unqualified?
No, you have to look at it, and this goes back to what the city manager said. A fire chief is someone who is groomed in condition. In other words, you invested in me and in Tom, probably, and I figured it up one time, it's about $80,000 in my education. You sent me to the National Fire Academy on 10 different times. You sent me to Oklahoma State University. You sent me to a lot of different places on your dime to prepare me to be fire chief when I was fire marshal. I learned codes. I took tests to validate that knowledge. I got my executive fire officer certification. I'm sure Tom will get his as well. You can't just put someone, pick anyone, to put them in a situation, in a program like the National Fire Academy that is a master's level educational experience. And that's what you do whenever you make someone your fire chief. You put them in that process. And not everyone's cut out for it. Not everyone's cut out to have someone stand in front of them and curse them and not respond back. And Tom Broughton's the only person I know of that will do that outside of me at the fire department. And so the one thing that you have to look at political acumen. You have to look at ability. You have to look at knowledge base. You also have to look at the amount of training the person's had. Tom's training at the National Fire Academy is very comparable to what I had. He's the closest person you have to meeting the national standards as set by the NFPA and set by other organizations to meeting the qualifications of the fire chief.
And my final question, excuse me. I know that you speak very highly of Tom Broughton, but do the other people that are interested, do they have a fair shot at becoming the next fire chief?
Well, are they as prepared as him? No. Did they avail themselves of opportunities to go to the National Fire Academy to attain the same level of training and same level of knowledge? No. Was it made available to them? Yes. If they wanted to take the time away from their family, if you put an application across my desk and you say, I want to go to the National Fire Academy, I'm signing that application, and I'm going to find the money to send you. I don't deny people the opportunity to do that. It is a question of want to. It is a question of purpose. It is a question of concentration, effort, pain, toil, sweat, whatever you want to call it, to get to a point to where you're qualified to be a fire chief. And it's not an easy thing to do, and very, very few people try to walk the road.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have this will be under your new business, consider Resolution R 2471, a resolution approving the Community Development Advisory Committee, also known as CDAC, prioritized recommendations for fiscal year 2024 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, annual action plan, and our Planning and Development Director, Ms. Kathy Selman, is here to discuss that item. Kathy?
Thank you. Good afternoon. The City of Hot Springs is an entitlement grantee of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program. Authorization of CDBG funds is contingent upon submission and acceptance of an annual action plan telling exactly how funds will be spent. Annual action plans are due no later than 60 days following an announcement of fiscal year CDBG allocations. Failure to submit an annual action plan on time automatically forfeits grant funds allocated during that fiscal year. However, without a 2024 appropriations bill, HUD cannot allocate CDBG funding. Preliminary approval of a prioritized list of CDBG applications enables us to focus limited resources on completing statutory requirements, such as environmental studies, to further qualify projects and submit an annual action plan within 60 days of an allocation announcement. Applications were accepted between December 7th and February 2nd. The open application period was widely advertised, including Sentinel record notices, press releases, online at cityhs.net, at public meetings, and direct emails to individuals, organizations, and prior applicants. 17 eligible applications were received, representing 2 city departments, 6 nonprofit organizations, and 2 neighborhood associations. As always, community need far exceeds the likely grant amount. Conservatively predicting, based on recent years' allocations, yields an estimated $375,000 allocation from HUD. Now, HUD is not the most predictable agency we deal with. So we've taken a conservative number, $375,000. Applicant requests total $786,759.65, and that's more than twice what we predict might be the number. Eligible applications were made available for review and comment on the city's website, and hard copies were available in the Planning and Development Department starting February 8th. A duly advertised public hearing was held on March 7th by the Community Development Advisory Committee, in which applicants presented projects, answered questions, and so forth. And following intensive discussion, CDAC, by a 4-0 vote, recommended a list of projects in a prioritized order to the City Board of Directors. You're the lucky people who get to make the final decision. So they're presenting that list to you, and should you accept the list or modify the list, whatever you do will become the basis for that annual action plan so we can get everything done within the 60 days that we will have. So there are, if you draw a line, we have 17 projects, and halfway through project 9, the line is drawn. So project 9 would be mostly but not completely funded. And the entire list will be in the packet. The applications are in the packet. And the recommendation in the resolution is that should the 2024 CDBG funds be less than the total amount requested, that CDEC is recommending that the board funds projects in their recommended priority order up to the amount available. Projects in excess of the available amount of funding will be placed on hold for reconsideration should additional funding become available in 2024. And that is something that we do see happen. Occasionally, an applicant who is highly ranked, circumstances will change. They are no longer able or needing to use the funds they have requested, and at that point, they would become available to CDEC to recommend that you move down the list further. So we're hoping, of course, for $787,000. Knowing that's unlikely, we present the prioritized list to you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Miss Kathy, I just want to make sure I heard you right. You were telling us that there's 60 days to get the list in. Is that what you were saying? What was it about 60 that you were saying?
60 days. As soon as HUD determines the number for the funding that goes to each of the entitlement jurisdictions in the country, that clock starts to run.
Then
And
we've got 60 days.
We have 60 days, not just to put together a list, but to do the required eligibility and clearances on those projects so that we can get the annual action plan to you and you are able to approve it and then get it back to HUD within the 60 days.
Right. Thank you. So in times past, what is the typical time frame for when those numbers have been released? About
Well-
which month and about which day?
Yeah, I would say, and I've been involved with CDBG in some form or fashion for most of the last 44 years. I think every month has seen a release of those numbers. Right now, as we have in several previous years, we don't have a budget, and the release of those figures is contingent upon congressional approval of a budget. So it's been in January 1 year, it's been in September, it's been in August, July, June, May, April, March.
So at the time of that release, your just gut instinct is telling you that it's going to be a little bit less than the 787,000. You're thinking somewhere
We-
around 375
We have
if we're
never
lucky.
had 787,000.
And at which time, if that's the case, according to the prioritized list, that will get us through 8 complete, or the first 8 prioritized projects and a little bit through 9.
And a good portion of number 9, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
With our packet, are you submitting to us all 17 projects?
Absolutely.
In there?
Yep.
Okay.
Every word.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, any more questions, Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, was HUD funded in this $1.2 trillion funding appropriation that was signed over the weekend? Do
I
you know?
do not know.
Okay, I just
No.
wondered if that would have, it wouldn't start the clock because they wouldn't have had time to put everything together
Yeah.
yet, but, okay.
Yeah.
I understood that would fund us through September. The next default day would be the end of this fiscal year. So-
Yeah, my understanding is that everything is on the table to be
Okay.
taken away,
Okay.
if you will.
Our last, thank you. The last business item for next Tuesday.
It will be your first and only ordinance of the evening. It's ordinance, consider ordinance O-2414, an ordinance amending the zoning map from R1 rural residential to N1 light manufacturing for 3.44 acres generally located at 110 Carpenter Dam Road, amending the future land use plan map to community commercial center and for other purposes. And again, Ms. Selman.
Thank you. The applicant on this item is Amber Green, representing, excuse me, the property owner, Henry Clyde Covington Jr. And this 3.44 acres of land has approximately, 1,130 feet of frontage on Carpenter Dam Road. So this is a kind of an odd-shaped parcel, but with great frontage. It's zoned R1 as a result of its annexation. The zoning was never changed after that. Has a future land use classification of residential suburban, and it is in Board of Directors District Number 6. It is unplatted, and the surrounding property zoning includes R1, R2, PD, M1, which is light manufacturing, and that is about it. And this is all around it. There's a mixture of zones all around it. The surrounding land uses, on the north is undeveloped land, on the east is Carpenter Dam Road and undeveloped land and Lakewood Therapy and Living Center. To the south, undeveloped. To the west is the City of Hot Springs compost, water, and wastewater treatment plants. The staff finding to Planning Commission is that the applicant successfully demonstrates that the standards for favorable consideration have been met. Planning Commission was able to establish a basis for recommendation to the board that the proposed change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning. With a future land use plan map amendment to convenience commercial center, the subject property would have a consistent land use designation with those properties nearby and would be consistent with the majority of surrounding commercially zoned properties, future land use. Planning Commission, at their duly advertised public hearing on March 7th, 2024, voted 6-0 with Commissioner Gerke recusing for conflict. After calling for testimony and considering the record, to accept the staff report findings and to recommend approving this request, assigning M1 Light Manufacturing Zone District, and approving a future land use plan map amendment to Community Commercial Center for that land generally known as 1100 Carpenter Dam Road.
Any questions to Ms. Selman on this matter? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes the items for your next Tuesday's meeting.
Very good. Well, we do have a special call meeting of the Board of Directors here in a few seconds, so we'll switch over and then call that meeting to order shortly.